Hello everyone, welcome to Tutorials by Decade. My name is Decade, and in this episode, we're gonna fix a couple issues. I've gotten a few messages about some issues players were having or people were having with their player, and I experienced the issue with my test, but I didn't experience the issue for whatever strange reason with my actual tutorial that I'm showing you. So I'm going to show you how to fix this issue and also prevent any issues in the future. So what the issue is if you go up to this room, camera follows you, you come back, camera still follows you. But if you transition and you talk to, the NPC in here, and then you transition back, people were having issues with the camera either not following them or the camera not following them into the next room. For whatever strange reason, again, it was working fine on this, but my test one that I was doing before I usually record, it was not working. And everything is exactly the same, so I'm not sure what happened. But again, we are going to address that issue because it is going to cause future issues if we don't address this now anyway. And in order to do that, we're going to use a signal and listening system. So what that means is the scripts are going to send a signal to other scripts. The other scripts are going to have listeners in them that are listening and waiting for that signal, and then it is going to fix the issue that some of you may or may not experience. And it's also going to fix future issues, because I was working on making a NPC that wanders around, and that's when I noticed this issue and issue for myself anyway. And I saw that other people were having this issue, but I thought maybe it was just a mistake in their code or something. But no, it was an actual issue. So this episode is going to be focusing on fixing that issue while also preparing for the wandering NPC, as well as a lot of other future potential problems that will hopefully be fixed in this episode. So this is a very important episode, so I will reference it a few times in future episodes just to make sure that you've watched this one. But the first thing we're going to do is we are going to go to our player persistence script, and we're going to make some changes to it. So underneath where it says private static player persistence instance, we're going to first change this to public. And then after instance, we are going to delete that semicolon, and we are going to put get and private set. So essentially we're doing the same thing we did before, only now we're making it public so that way all the other scripts can access it. We're also going to do a public static event, and then system dot action, and you can see it kind of already did what I wanted to do here. We're going to do player persistence, and then we're going to do on player ready. So once we have that, we're going to scroll down, and then between awake and on destroy, we are going to do private void on enable. And this is where we're going to notify all listeners that the player is ready. And then down here, we're just going to go on player ready, question mark, period, invoke, and then this. So that is how we're going to set up the listen and message system between all of these. So now that we have that done, we are going to go to our room script, and we are essentially going to completely redo the room script. So some of the stuff can stay the same. So like private string room name can stay there, private string room message can stay there. Same with show message. Same with starting room. But essentially everything after that, we are just going to highlight and delete. So now for the changes. We are going to change the header here to say camera. We are going to serialize the field. And we're going to do a private Cinemachine camera. Just call that room camera. Oh, we forgot a tooltip. What'd I do? I apparently hit a button on my mouse that made me skip back there, but we don't want to do that. We forgot the tooltip here, and we'll just do tooltip the camera for the room. All right. Then here we're going to do a tooltip. We're going to do the active priority number. And we're going to do a private int active priority, and then we're going to make that 20. And then we're going to do, oh, we forgot the serialized field. Man, I'm forgetting stuff left and right here, aren't I? There we go. And then we're going to do one more tooltip. And we're going to do the inactive priority number. Let's remember to serialize that field. And then we're going to do a private int inactive priority. Then we're going to default that to 0. Then we're going to do a private static room current. And I don't think we're going to use this, but I'm going to put it in here anyway. Transform player. All right. So first we're going to do private void reset. And in here we're going to do a variable. Call it COL for collision. And we're going to do get component. And then collider 2D. And then we're going to do if COL for if collider. Then we are going to do collider.isTrigger to true. That's just a safety to make sure that the collider is set to a trigger. Now we're going to do private void on enable. And in here we're going to do player persistence dot on player ready plus equals bind follow. Now you're going to get an error there, but we're going to fix that in a minute. We're also going to get try bind now, and you're also going to get an error there. Again, we are going to fix those in just a minute. First, we want to do a private void on disable. And we are going to do player persistence dot on player ready minus equals bind follow. So what we're doing here is we're receiving signals, and these are our listeners. They're listening for the signals, and then they're going to be doing things. Obviously, we are going to bind follow here, and we're not going to bind follow there. Which we'll be doing that here in just a minute. First, we need to redo the start. Honestly, I probably could have left the start in there. But if starting room, then we're going to do activate room. And again, you're going to get an error here, but that's okay. We are going to fix that in just a minute. And we're going to do current is this. And then we're going to do else deactivate room. And again, you're going to get another error there, but that's okay. We're now going to do a private void bind follow, and it is going to require a player persistence, and we're just going to name that P, make it nice and simple. And in here, if room camera not equals null, meaning there is a room camera, and the player persistence not equals null, meaning there is a player, then we're going to do room camera dot follow equals P dot transform. And that's all we're going to do for that. And then private void try bind now. And in here, if player persistence dot instance not equals null, meaning there is a player, then we're going to do bind follow. And just like it said there, player persistence dot instance. So what we're doing here is we're essentially telling the camera, hey, there's a room camera active and there's a player active. We need to follow the player. This is just to catch in case the up here for the private void on enable. This is just to catch in case the bind follow doesn't work. So that's what's going on there. Now we're going to do a private void activate room. And that should get rid of one of the errors. And then we're going to do if player persistence dot instance is not null, meaning there is a player, and the room camera dot follow is not the player persistent dot instance dot transform. So in other words, if there is a player and the room camera is following the player, then the room camera dot follow equals player persistence dot instance dot transform. I think I said up here if the room camera is following the player. If the room camera is not following the player, then this will set the room camera to follow the player. And then here we're going to do room camera dot priority equals active priority. So essentially all we're doing, and I'll show you more about this in Unity once we switch over, but instead of activating or deactivating the cameras, we're setting all the cameras to be active, but we're setting the priority of them. You can still technically activate and deactivate the cameras if you want. Again, a game like this, depending on how big your overworld is and depending on how big your game actually is, it shouldn't affect performance too much. But if you ever wanted to just shut off the cameras, you can still do that as we did before. But we are essentially making sure that no matter what happens, the cameras are always going to be active and follow the player. And then same with deactivating them, we're going to do private void deactivate room. That should get rid of that other error we had. And then all we're doing here is room camera dot priority or Yeah, priority equals inactive priority. Again, here we can activate or deactivate the cameras if you want, as we did before. So game object, I believe it's, how did we do it before? Hold on, or Cinemachine camera, room camera. How did we do that before? Well, whatever the case may be, that there's a few different ways that we can do this, but there's no need to do that for this. What there is a need to do, though, is add in our on-trigger enters and on-trigger exits. So private void on-trigger enter 2D. And again, I like to make this other. Then if not other dot compare tag player, then we're just going to return. That way, only the player will activate this. Then we're going to hand off from previous room. So what we're going to do is if current not equals null, meaning that there is a room, and if the current is not this, then we're going to do current dot deactivate room. Then after that's done, we are going to activate the room. Then we're going to set current to this. And then if show message and not string dot is null or empty, room message, we're going to put a to do here, add a message to show when entering room, need to add UI. All right, so what we're doing here is we're checking if something enters that zone that we set up when we initially did the rooms. It should be just a polygon collider set as a trigger. If that thing that collides with it is not tagged player, we don't do anything. But if it is, we do all of this stuff, which is essentially if we're in another room and we're transitioning from one room to another, then we're deactivating the current room and making the new room the current room by activating room and making current this. And then this is whenever we have a message to show, which we'll get to eventually. Then we just have to do a private void on trigger exit 2D. Again, I like to change this to other. And then essentially we have to do the same thing. If not other dot compare tag is the player. So again, we're checking to make sure it's the player and only the player. And we're just going to return. Then only lower priority if we're the active room. So if current equals this, then we're going to deactivate the room. And then current equals null. So all we're really doing here is when we leave the room, we're making sure that that room we're leaving is deactivated. I'll show you how that works in just 1 minute, but while we're here in the code, we're going to go to our base NPC and we're going to change a couple things here, mainly to get set for the wandering NPC, but also just a couple things to make sure that everything works with our new player persistent. So one of the things that we need to do is we need to change right here where it says interactive range. We're going to do a tooltip. Is the NPC always idle, meaning the NPC doesn't move? We're going to serialize that field, and we are going to do a protected bool is always idle. We're going to default that to false. Then down here, we need to take this, the animator, and make that protected. And then is interacting, we're also going to make that protected. So a few minor things that we need to do right there. What protected is the same thing as private, but it will go. We haven't really talked about inheritance much yet, but we're going to be inheriting from this script. So we're going to be essentially creating a new script that's going to inherit everything from this script. And anything that's private, we could still use, but we can't change in that script. Whereas anything that is protected, it's still private, but it's only private within the inheritance chain, which we'll talk more about that later. For now, we're just getting some things set up. So private void awake, we're going to stay the same. Private void enable, there's a couple things that we need to do here. So we are going to do kind of what we did before. We're going to do player persistence dot on player ready plus equals bind player, and you're going to get an error there, which is fine. We're going to fix that here in a minute. We're going to do try bind now. Again, another error. We're going to fix that in a minute. And then we're going to put back the input enable. And then that takes care of that. And then private void on disable. We're just going to delete that. And here we're going to do player persistence dot on player ready minus equals bind player, and then we're going to do the input dot disable again. So let's get rid of these errors. Start is going to stay the same. Yep. And then update's going to stay the same. Player interaction. There is one minor difference we need to do here. So where it says face player, we need to add an if statement here. We're going to do if is always idle. Then we'll face the player. That'll save some headache later whenever we are doing our NPC. All of this stuff should stay the same. Face player stays the same. So before we get to any of this real fast, I do gotta go up. There's some things I forgot to do. So the start. All the way up to start, we need to make this protected, not private. And virtual. This will allow us to make changes whenever we go to inherit from this. What else do we need to do? Face player, that's right. Actually, no, we don't need to do face player, I don't think. If we do, we'll cross that when we get there. But we do need to do, before start interaction, we need to do a protected virtual void bind player, player persistence p. And if p is not null, then we need player to equal p dot transform. So let me make sure everything up here is good. in the start up here, we are just going to do, we should be good here because up here this should fix on enable. As a matter of fact, we can delete that. We shouldn't even need that anymore because on enable is called before start, and on enable is actually going to bind what we need to bind. So we'll just get rid of that. And now underneath bind player here, we're going to do another protected virtual void try bind now. And if player persistence dot instance not equals null, meaning there is one, then we're just going to do bind player persistence is instance. So essentially we're doing the same thing we did for the room, only we're adapting it for the NPC. Everything else in here should remain the same, so make sure you save your scripts. We'll go over to Unity. We will clear our console. We will hit play. Oh, you know what? Before we hit play, there's one thing I forgot to do. So we need to first go to our rooms, our room scripts, and we need to add the room cameras again. So we'll drop that in there. And same with this one. Drop that one in there. Everything else should have stayed the same. Make sure your room 00 says starting room. The one other thing we need to do with the cameras is we need to, beforehand, right over here where it says priority, if this is your starting room, you want to change the priority to a check mark and then value to 20. And then this room camera should already be on. We'll hit priority and keep that at 0. That should, hopefully, fix everything. Now, I want you to see real fast where it says right here, 00 camera. Over where it says tracking target, right now it just says player.transform, but watch what happens when I hit play. It now says player transform, don't destroy on load. That means no matter what we do here, the player persistence will always be set to here. So for whatever reason, the old way it wasn't finding the player, now it's going to find the player, although I did forget to do that in here, so we need to go to our test scene. So let's save this scene. Let's go to scenes, let's go to our test house. Let's go to room house. Room house doesn't have a room script, so we are going to add that script in there. We are going to add the room camera. That room camera shouldn't have changed anything, although we do need to make that the house camera, I'm sorry. But we do need to make that priority, set that to 20. Okay. So all of this should be good now. So let's save this, go back to our test house or test scene. And let's head into that test house and see if that fixed that issue. Boom, there we go. We can move around in here. We can interact with our friend. Then we can exit back out. And the camera's still going to follow. And there we go. So now that we have a signal and listener system in, or a message and listener system, I've heard it called both ways. Our player, even though our player is persistent and doesn't actually get destroyed, sometimes the cameras won't be able to find, let me get there here, won't be able to find the player again, because whenever you come back in, all this stuff gets reloaded, and if for whatever reason the player doesn't get loaded fast enough, the camera won't be able to find the player. So we switched it so that way the cameras will always find the player. We also switched it that we're using a priority system as opposed to activating and just deactivating the cameras. Again, in the code, you can deactivate the camera if you want. We don't have to, at least not yet. If we do want to do that, it's a quick, easy fix via one line of code. So, no big deal there. But nonetheless, that fixed an issue that some people were having, and it's going to fix a potential future issue with our wandering NPCs, so now we won't have to worry about that. So I'm sorry if this video took a little longer than anticipated, and I'm sorry if you were looking to work on NPCs, but this is something that needed to be addressed so that way we can fix any potential future issues with the player not being found by the camera and eventually the wandering NPC. So with that out of the way, I hope you'll learn something. If you did, make sure you give this video a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, as I have videos like this coming out all the time, and I don't want you to miss anything. And it does help me out, so I do appreciate it. So please, please, please subscribe so you don't miss anything. And with all that out of the way, as always, thank you. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video.